Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas.
Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select Resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. My guest this week is David Cohen. David is a partner at Reed Smith, where he chairs the firm's records and eDiscovery group. He has over 30 years of commercial litigation experience in a variety of subject matters. He's served as special eDiscovery counsel in many cases. He represents companies in complex litigation matters. He also counsels clients on records management and litigation readiness issues. David has been involved for a long time and in many ways in the eDiscovery community. For example, he was involved in setting up the eDiscovery Special Masters program in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania. He is a chair of the project trustees for EDRM, an organization close to my heart, and on the advisory board for Georgetown University Law Center's Advanced eDiscovery Institute. David has a BA from Kenyon College and a JD from Harvard Law School. Dave, welcome.
Thanks very much, George. I'm delighted to be with you this morning.
Glad to have you with us. And today we've got one topic in particular to focus on for our discussion, which is your Reed Smith's eDiscovery app. So tell us, what is it? Where did it come from? And then we'll go from there.
Sure thing. Topic near and dear to my heart. Many of us who practice in the eDiscovery industry are constantly looking for resources, old forms and templates that we can reuse, whether it's a legal hold notice or a checklist to make sure we're doing everything right. And what we did at Reed Smith was we put together an eDiscovery guide for our lawyers, our litigators. And in fact, I'm going to do a little show and tell here. Here was the original eDiscovery reference guide. And so it had lots of pages of forms and resources and glossaries. And we spent a lot of time putting that together a number of years ago. And then we would update it annually and send out new copies to all the Reed Smith litigators, about 1,000 lawyers across the world, and it was very time consuming and expensive. And then we came up with the idea, well, why don't we just turn this into an app? In the meantime, I had several clients that were having us put together similar guides for their internal legal departments to help publicize their eDiscovery procedures and provide useful forms. So we thought, hey, we can put this all into an app and make it available, and that's what we did. And so the eDiscovery app was created, and once we went to that effort, we thought, well, why not just make this available to the whole eDiscovery community? So it is a free app. I will do a little bit more show and tell here and show you the homepage with the different resources so you can see what they are. Everything from glossaries, a calendar of events to keep track of all the eDiscovery conferences and CLEs, selected rules like the federal rules of civil procedure and the state rules for all 50 states. These are links to those. Various document review tips and forms, other sample eDiscovery forms, everything from protective orders to legal hold notices, etc. Additional U.S. resources, and we're very happy that we have just added to the resources. There's a section for podcasts and webcasts, and so the eDiscovery Leaders Live program of Reveal and ACEDS is now featured. So another way to get to these podcasts is just to go to the app, and we link directly to the podcast. We also have other CLEs on demand, and then selected articles as well. And there is international and cross-border section with information about GDPR compliance and various tools. And then there is also a solution provider directory where I think we're up at 60 or more at this point, eDiscovery companies and solution providers, their information, their geographies, the services that they offer, information about diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that they have or sponsor. And that's a searchable database of eDiscovery solution providers. So those are resources, and we're always trying to add to and improve the app.
When you decided to move from a paper-only version to an electronic version, you had, of course, some choices. You could have put up a website or a web page within the Reed Smith website. I'm sure you had yet other avenues. You chose an app. Why that path?
I think it's really convenience for users. And I should note that there is, in fact, a web version. So you can get all that same content at https://ediscoveryapp.com or ediscoveryapp.net. So we reserve those domain names. And then you'll have the full web version. And that actually is pretty handy for editing some of the forms. So I have that website bookmarked on Google, but we thought it would be really useful to have it as an app as well, because it just makes it so convenient. You know, you're walking around and you have all this information in your pocket. You could be in a deposition, you could be in court, you need to look up a rule, you need to look up another reference. It's right there for you. And you can also, from the app, you can email forms or references directly from the app. So I tend to use the app version even more than the web version, just because it's so handy. You're carrying it around in your pocket at all times. You hear an eDiscovery term, you want to look it up in the glossary, it's right there for you.
How complex, how time-consuming, how challenging was it to create an app as opposed to just a web page? And then, of course, you had to do both.
Right. Well, fortunately, we used one of these app development toolkits. BuildFire was the name of the company that we used, and the app on the phone is exactly the same as the app on the web. So fortunately, that was just one process. The total time that has gone into it is a lot of time, but we had a great starting point. We'd already put in all that time to the eDiscovery reference guide, which had many of the resources. And so taking that and transforming it from a written guide into an app, that piece of it alone wasn't that bad. You know, we wanted to size it right for the iPhone and make it really useful and handy. So there certainly some work went into it. But what I didn't fully realize, I think, when we first launched it, is the app is never done. I knew we would want to keep it updated. Obviously, things like the calendar of events and, other new forms and so on. But the amount of updating and additions has really been substantial. And so we have a standing meeting. We have an app committee at my firm, and we meet once a week to talk about new content, to collaborate on new content, new links, etc. When we started, I thought, well, these weekly meetings might go on for a little while, then maybe we can cut back to once a month. That has never happened, and doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, because we're always coming up with new ideas. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we put this new thing on the app? And so we're constantly considering that. And we've also solicited from the larger eDiscovery community contributions. So this is not just a Reed Smith product. Many of the resources on the app are either links to great resources that are out there, like Reveal's podcasts, or people just send them to us or let us use them. And in particular, I want to give a shout out to EDRM, because EDRM has a number of project teams that are putting together great resources, like a GDPR committee that's putting together checklists for that. There's a privilege protocol committee that put together a great privilege protocol, and there's other resources. And many of these teams have agreed, and EDRM has agreed, that we can put copies of those on the app. So we've got some tremendous resources from the EDRM teams that are now available on the app, as well as at the EDRM website. So we're not trying to take any traffic away from the Reveal website or the EDRM website, but what we're doing is we're putting a link in the app, so there's another easy, convenient way to get to these resources.
Do you have a regularly scheduled update, or do you roll out updates on an ad hoc basis?
Yeah, it's pretty much when they're ready, and sometimes it's hard to predict. One that's going to be coming out soon is a new budgeting and scheduling tool for e-discovery review projects. And that has been really complicated to put together. We started out with the Excel spreadsheet that many of us have created, but then trying to put that in a format that works well on a cell phone screen and we wanted to make it both easy to use for the novice user, the person who just knows, hey, I have 100,000 documents, or I have 50 gigs of information, how much is going to cost, how long is it going to take. So somebody who just has a basic question like that can put that into the pricing tool and get scheduling information and pricing information. But we also wanted to make it customizable for advanced users, power users, so that they can adjust the assumptions that are sort of built into the tool. So how much are you paying to process a gigabyte of data, and how long does that take? How much are you paying per hour for reviewers to do primary review, secondary review, and QC of documents? What's your QC ratio? All of those kinds of questions and assumptions are user adjustable, so that the pricing tool really it's really cool. It's really going to allow you to customize things. But just putting all that together and making it functional on an app has taken a long time. But we now have a beta version, and we're getting ready to launch the full version soon.
Is that something, and I know from past and painful experience how challenging that can be just on the spreadsheet side, to say nothing of moving it to an app. Is this budgeting and pricing tool something that you all at Reed Smith are developing by yourselves? Are there others involved?
We've developed it with help from our technology subsidiary. We have a subsidiary called Gravity Stack, which does a lot of the technical stuff in terms of data processing and hosting and the analytics. And so they have a lot of experience. So when we're trying to come up with what should be our default assumptions for how much it costs per gigabyte to do this, or how long this takes, what stages should we include? So it was a collaboration between Reed Smith and Gravity Stack. But as with everything else on the app, we are looking for community input. There is a link on the app where you can volunteer to either give us new content if you have a great checklist or form that you're willing to share with the Discovery community, or to give us suggestions to improve what we already have on there. So we are always looking for input, and we have a long list. If you go to the app, there's a list of contributors to the app, and it is a long list of people both within Reed Smith and outside. George, I think you're on the list. I think so, for
just maybe
something here or there. And a lot of the stars that you've had on your podcast, the Discovery Leaders, have contributed to the app.
And the app is, and I think you mentioned this, but even if you didn't, the app is free for everyone to use, right?
It is free, and that was a decision that we had to make up front. Was this something that we were going to try to, monetize, or was it something we were going to offer the community for free? And we chose the latter, largely because we wanted to have a lot of buy-in. We want a lot of people to be able to use it. We wanted it to get popular. We were hoping that it would bring some reputational benefit to Reed Smith, but at this point, there's nothing that monetizes it. In fact, you don't even need to tell who you are when you download it. We don't collect any personal information from anybody that downloads it. It's about a 30-second download on. In fact, for anybody who's listening to the podcast, I have my Get the App card. You can just look at that, use your phone to scan that little code there. It will take you to the App Store if you have an iPhone, or to Google Play if you have an Android device, and you can have the app downloaded in 30 seconds and then get access to all the free resources. Again, don't have to put in any personal information at all. If you, by the way, if you didn't scan the code in time, you just search for eDiscovery app at Google Play or the App Store, and you'll find it. I think
it comes up right away, top of the list.
Yeah, I don't think there's other eDiscovery apps of a similar nature. I think it's
that was my next question. Is there anything else akin to this out there, whether it's from another law firm, from a service provider, software provider, industry association, anybody?
I've not seen anything like it in the legal field. We came up with the idea because we had created an app for data breaches, but it wasn't a app that could be downloaded on your phone. It's sort of a web app. I really haven't seen phone apps that are like this, that provide lots of free resources to tackle sort of one area of law. I'm not an expert. There might be something out there. But, I think this is really useful. And I use it myself. I would think I was telling you before the webcast, probably not a week goes by where I'm not pulling up some rule or some form or checking the calendar of events to see to schedule something. And I don't want to conflict with any of the major eDiscovery conferences and so on. So I find it very useful.
Well, one of the things
also in this work from home era where I no longer have I'm in the office today, and of course I have my federal rules books on the bookshelf. But when I'm working from home, to be able to pull out the app and pull up the federal rules that relate to discovery, or even the state rules, because we have links to the state rules for all 50 states, GDPR, whatever document you want to look at, when you're not close to your bookshelf, it's really nice to have that available on the app. So I think it was fortuitous timing. We launched the app right before COVID, but it was really fortuitous timing in terms of the usefulness of having it.
Well, and an app on the phone is certainly much more convenient than a book that either is on the bookshelf or has disappeared from the bookshelf and no one can find.
Much easier to update as well.
Yes.
We are frequently updating things on the app.
Yeah, one of the sections I noted that I'll flip to it here is on my phone. So let's see if I can get this in front of the camera. If people can read that, probably not, but it's the section on the rules. And I appreciate that there's a section on selected federal rules of civil procedure where you've specifically called out the rules that have to do with electronic discovery. I know for myself, I keep going, okay, now which were the rules?
Yeah, that makes it easier. And we tried to do the same thing with like we have rules of professional conduct, but we focused on the rules of ethics that are most likely to apply to e-discovery situations. Same with federal rules of evidence. We have 502, we have 902, we have the rules that you'd want to look at there. And then on the state discovery rules side, what we tried to do, in addition to having links to each state's rules, we also have a quick note there as to whether that state has based their rules on the federal rules or whether they're unique. Some states, like my state of Pennsylvania, the rules are completely different. And so you can, quickly at a glance get an idea of, how much you're going to have to delve into the state rules to really understand the discovery procedure.
And then for something, so I'll go back to the federal rules as an example, because I think this is the same structure you're probably using throughout. So I go in, I look, I see a reference to producing, Rule 34 producing. There's a button to click go. That takes me to a site that I personally am partial to, the Legal Information Institute from Cornell Law, where I went to school. This was not a resource, of course, available when I was there, but former Dean Peter Martin and I forget who, Bruce Thomas, who'd been one of the librarians, built this capability out. So you're taking people from an overview and a structure and directly into materials so that they can then navigate further from there. Is that pretty much the structure throughout?
Yes. I mean, there are some certainly forms and checklists that we've developed or that, some committees have developed. But a lot of what we tried to do was just find the best links out there. And I agree, I think Cornell site for the rules is the best place, the most convenient and really easy to use. And so we really were curators. We're looking for sites, and shout out to everybody whose sites we've linked to on the app, and or who let us use their materials. That includes the judges of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania. They had developed some great resources for compliance with e-discovery requirements in federal cases, checklists, and things like that. And they let us link to copies of those checklists. So we appreciated that. We appreciate Cornell and all the other great sites. Another EDRM team that I should give a shout out to is the dedupe ID committee and the processing specs committee. The processing specs committee just came out with new processing glossary and processing specifications. Craig Ball was very central to that and gave us permission to add those materials to the app as well. So that's one of the newer additions. So now we have two glossaries. We have a general e-discovery glossary, and then we have a glossary specifically focused on data processing terms in e-discovery, because that is such a specialized area, and there's a lot of terms used there that aren't in our brief e-discovery glossary.
If folks are looking for something on the app and don't find it and wish it were there, what do they do?
Yeah, so we have a contact us button. So, give us requests and we'll go look for it. We're always looking to improve the app. And also the other side of that coin, if you know of something, if you have a form, if you think your form is better than our form, submit it, and we'll take a look. If we agree with you, we'll put your form on. And again, we will give you appropriate credit. You'll be listed as a contributor to the app. I would love to see every discovery leader and practitioner across the country on that list, really make this a community resource.
As we, or at least as you and your team, look to the future, what might we expect to see with the app moving forward?
So there are continued efforts to develop new forms. I mentioned the pricing tool. It also has a scheduling tool, which helps you figure out how long you need or how many reviewers you need to get hit a particular schedule. We'd love to continue our close partnership with EDRM to continue to take work product that teams develop, the different EDRM teams, and there's a lot of great work going on with EDRM committees right now. And as those materials are completed, to the extent the teams want us to, we're happy to link to those from the app. Also great resources like Reveal's podcasts. We've tried to note, other resources out there, and we have a preference for free resources. If they're free to the community, then that makes it an easy decision. And if we look at them and make sure they're high quality and easy to navigate, they work well with the app, and then we make them available. We're not limited to free stuff. We certainly list the major conferences on the e-discovery calendar, even though you may have to pay to register for those. We also list plenty of free events. And as I mentioned, we list the e-discovery companies, anybody that wants to be listed that has an established business that relates to e-discovery. We don't charge for those listings, but we just want to sort of make all these resources easily available to the e-discovery community.
I imagine that the app is primarily US-centric. I know there's a section in there on international and cross-border, but with things such as rules and events, there's a big world out there that's got nothing to do with us. How much are you able to cover all the rest of the world?
Yeah, so we have included on our calendar of events e-discovery events that occur worldwide. Many of them are from some of the providers, the Masters Conference, and others. As you mentioned, we have that international cross-border section, and I'm actually working with my colleague in London, James Whittington, to create more of a UK version of the app. As you probably know, George, there's not much discovery in most of continental Europe. So the UK is much more similar to our US system. So e-discovery is much bigger in the UK than most of the rest of Europe, where you might run into cross-border issues because they have documents you need, but you're not going to run into the same kind of discovery issues. But we've also tried to expand beyond the US and Europe. We just did a podcast on e-discovery in Asia, and that's available as one of our podcasts on demand. And so that is another area where we'd like to continue to expand and put resources in worldwide. I think clearly the U.S. has more e-discovery than anywhere else, but there are other legal systems. Some of our materials, for example, were developed by folks in Australia who are working on the EDRM committees and so on. So yeah, we want to continue to expand it.
And the Dedupe project you referenced is largely driven out of Australia. I'd say that half to 2/3 of the participants in that project, I think, are Australian, which is why the meetings are on our calendars in the evening.
Yeah. And shout out to Beth Patterson, who is chairing that committee and doing a fantastic job there. But yeah, that's not the only, EDRM has really become international since those early days when you founded it as a small, organization. It's really become worldwide with thousands of members now. And, I'm very active on the GDPR committee, and I would say half of our committee is from outside the U.S. Obviously, it makes sense to have Europeans helping us figure out the GDPR. But yeah, that's true of many of the different EDRM committees now that have international members.
Well, one final question on the app, and maybe you have an answer and maybe you don't have the ability to track this, but how widely used do you think it is?
Well, we do know the total downloads of the app. That we don't know who, because we never even collect that information, but the app does track the downloads and the hits and so on. So we're at about 1,600 downloads to smartphones now. That doesn't include all the people that access it on the web. But the funny thing is, we track that number and report on the weekly, added at the weekly meetings, and it's just continually growing. So I think the word is getting out, and when people find out, hey, all these resources are available for free, why not download it? And so, I just expect that number to keep going up. And really, it was only launched in 2020. So to have that much buy-in already is pretty impressive, I think.
So really, in many ways, it's very new. And with luck, you have not yet hit that hockey stick moment of a rapid adoption and growth.
Yeah.
Because from what I've seen, the app certainly deserves it.
Yeah. Well, and we certainly will be delighted by that. We're not going to make any money from it because we don't get paid anything for it, but nice to see it being adopted by the discovery community. And I really think it will help. Many of our clients have, complimented us on it, saying, hey, it used to be I had to call up the lawyer and have them spend half an hour finding this form for me and charging me for it, or I owe them a favor because they didn't charge me for it. I can just look it up on the app and it's right there. And, it's you may still have to customize these forms to particular circumstances. I don't want to, we're not doing the high value legal work through the app, but to get that starting template is really useful. And it's useful not only to the clients, but also to the practitioners who within their own firms have to send out the, pardon the interruption, but does anybody have one of these forms or one of those checklists? The other advantage, not only in having a template, but we've really tried to make them best practice templates. We didn't just collect one, we collected a bunch of them and tried to find the best or create the best. And we're always looking to improve the material. So anybody who's watching this podcast and has any good reference material that you think might enhance the app and you're willing to make it available to the community, please let us know that.
Great. Well, thank you. Dave is a partner at Reed Smith. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Thanks for joining us today, and please join us again next Friday, September 17th, our more or less 1-year anniversary with this program, when our guest will be Frank Popso of Data Discovery Lab. Dave, thanks again very much for joining us today.
Thanks, George. It's been a pleasure.